I was 10 when my dad died. They told me it was an accident, something about a pipe bursting at the factory and a fall that snapped his neck instantly. I don't remember much else, just the sound of my mother sobbing behind a locked bedroom door and the adults who looked at me with a kind of sadness that didn't feel real. There was no funeral, at least not one I was allowed to attend. Too young, my aunt had said. He should remember his father the way he was, not in a coffin. So I did. I remembered him laughing as he grilled burgers in the backyard. I remembered how he used to tuck me in at night, whispering silly bedtime stories he made up on the spot. And I remembered how he always looked at my mom, like she was someone he loved but didn't fully trust. I never questioned the story I was told, not really. As I grew older, I buried it, like everyone else seemed to. Life moved on. My mother never remarried. She sold the house, moved us into a smaller place, and took a job at a law office downtown. She didn't talk about him, not once. She kept her grief in a jar, sealed tight. Now I'm 30. My mom passed away 2 months ago. Lung cancer, stage 4. It moved fast. I was the only one left to go through her things. No siblings, no close family. Just me, a dusty old key she gave me before she died, and the house she hadn't lived in since I was 10. I hadn't been back since. It was surreal walking through those halls again. The carpet smelled like dust and rain. The wallpaper was peeling at the corners, and the air had a weight to it, as if the house itself remembered everything that had happened inside it. There were boxes in the attic I didn't recognize, sealed tight with duct tape. I cut one open, expecting old photos or maybe some of my childhood toys. Instead, I found newspaper clippings, dozens of them, all from around the time of my dad's death. Local man dies in factory accident. Investigation ruled inconclusive. No witnesses, cameras malfunctioned. That last one stuck with me. I read it over and over. Malfunctioned cameras, no witnesses, and the investigation was ruled inconclusive? That wasn't the version of the story I was told. I thought it was all clean-cut, simple. I flipped through the rest of the clippings and found a manila envelope tucked at the bottom of the box. Inside it was a single photograph, me as a boy sitting on my dad's lap. He was smiling, but there was something off about the picture, something that felt too staged. On the back, in handwriting I didn't recognize, were 5 words. He didn't fall, she pushed. My stomach dropped. Was it a cruel joke, some leftover artifact from a conspiracy theory? Or had someone, maybe my dad himself, been trying to leave me a message all this time? I suddenly realized something else. In all these years, I'd never visited my dad's grave. My mother never brought it up. I had just assumed it was taken care of. But that day, I searched online, cemeteries, records, obituaries, and I found nothing. No plot, no gravestone, no official burial record. It was like he had disappeared. And now, I couldn't stop asking myself, what really happened the night my dad died?
The attic held more secrets than just yellowed clippings and half-forgotten memories. As I rummaged through another dusty box, my fingers brushed against a wooden panel that felt loose. The floor beneath the insulation creaked oddly, like it had a hollow space just beneath. I pried it open, expecting a rat's nest or moldy insulation. Instead, I found a small, rusted metal lockbox. It wasn't locked, just latched, and inside was a stack of old papers, brittle with age and curled at the corners. On top sat a single envelope, yellowed and sealed with wax that had long since cracked apart. It was addressed to no one, just a date. May 13th, 1999, the day before my dad died. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. My hands trembled slightly as I unfolded the letter inside. If you're reading this, I probably didn't make it. I want you to know I didn't fall. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't reckless. And most importantly, I didn't die by accident. I've been watching something unfold for a while now, something I shouldn't have ignored. It started with misfiled invoices, accounts that didn't add up,
and suddenly I was in too deep. I asked questions, the wrong people noticed, and now I can't go back. Your mother told me to walk away. I didn't listen. But if anything happens to me, don't trust the story you're given. Not from her, not from the police, no one. Get out, run if you have to, but don't stop until you find out who really did this. Dad. I read the letter twice, then a third time. It didn't feel real. This wasn't a note from a man fearing an accident. This was a warning. And the part that chilled me most wasn't even the accusation toward my mother. It was that he wrote it the day before he died. He knew. I went through the rest of the box and found more. Printouts of financial records, names I didn't recognize, even a torn page from what looked like a company ledger with handwritten notes and underlined figures. Something had been happening at the factory, something illegal from the looks of it. But why would my mom be involved in any of this? She wasn't part of the company. She worked from home back then, a freelance proofreader. She'd never even visited the factory, as far as I remembered. Still, Dad's warning about not trusting her wasn't something I could ignore. Not anymore. I went back downstairs, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at the letter for nearly an hour. Questions piled on top of each other like bricks in a collapsing wall. Why did Mom never mention the investigation being inconclusive? Why did she isolate me from Dad's workplace, his funeral, his friends? And why? Wasn't there a grave? I remembered a single photo album she used to keep in her bedroom drawer, one I wasn't allowed to touch. It had a broken clasp and a cracked leather spine. I found it in the bottom of her old dresser, hidden beneath a pile of scarves. Most of the photos were familiar. Family holidays, birthdays, Dad holding me up when I was 4. But tucked between 2 pages was something different, a photo that didn't belong. A man in a suit, older, graying at the temples, standing next to my mom in what looked like a hotel lobby. They weren't smiling. In fact, the man looked uncomfortable, like he hadn't expected the picture to be taken. On the back, in Mom's handwriting, JT, before everything started falling apart. JT. Who was he? Not a friend, not someone I remembered. But it felt deliberate, like she'd kept the photo not out of sentiment, but as a reminder, or maybe even a threat. I flipped the page. There was a receipt taped loosely beside another photo. It was old, from a hotel in another state, dated 3 days after my dad's accident. Paid in full, under my mother's name. She left town right after he died. Why? And why had she hidden that? At that point, I wasn't just suspicious. I was scared. Everything I'd believed for 20 years was unraveling, and at the center of it was a woman I'd loved more than anyone. Was my mom capable of murder? I didn't have answers, but I had one lead. On the back of the letter, scribbled hastily in pencil, was an address I didn't recognize, and a name I hadn't heard in decades. Tina. She knows.
The address led me to a small, weather-beaten house just outside of town. A white picket fence sagged in places, and the paint on the shutters had long since flaked away. There were no cars in the driveway. For a moment, I thought no one was home. But the mailbox still had fresh envelopes inside. Bills, catalogs, a flyer about pest control. Someone lived here. I knocked once, twice. The door creaked open slightly on the 3rd try, and an old woman appeared behind the screen door. She looked at me for a long time without saying a word. Then, quietly, "Your father had your eyes." That alone made my throat tighten. "You're Tina?" I asked. She nodded and slowly opened the door wider. "Come in. You shouldn't be seen out here too long." The inside of the house was dim, lit mostly by dusty sunlight filtering through closed curtains. The air smelled faintly of cinnamon and mothballs. A kettle hissed quietly on the stove, though she made no move to pour tea. Her hands shook as she sat across from me at the kitchen table. "I didn't know he left the letter for anyone," she said. "I thought it was lost." I found it last week, I replied, in my mom's old attic. I don't even know what I'm looking for anymore, but I need to know what happened to him, to my dad. Tina stared at her hands, silent for a long time. Then she said something that didn't make sense at first. He was going to blow the whole thing open. I waited. The company, the fake accounts, the bribes, the silent partners. He was scared but determined. Said he'd collected enough evidence to take to the state attorney. But then, something changed. What changed? I asked. Your mother. The way she said it made the air grow colder. She came to me, Tina continued, told me he was getting paranoid, accusing people, seeing threats where there weren't any. She said he was drinking more, sleeping less. I believed her at the time. She seemed afraid. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. She wanted him to stop, told him to stay out of it, that it was dangerous. But he didn't listen. She paused and looked at me again. Then came the fall. Tina reached into a drawer and pulled out a faded folder. Inside were photocopies of documents, payroll ledgers, internal emails, a typed memo with heavy redactions. She slid one toward me. This was the last thing he gave me, said if anything happened, I had to hold on to it. It was a list of employees and private contracts, followed by a name that stood out instantly. J.T. Bellamy. The man in the photo with my mother. He was part owner of the factory, Tina explained. Silent investor. Rumors said he was laundering money through the supply chain. Your dad started asking questions, and JT didn't like that. A sick feeling bloomed in my stomach. But that doesn't make sense, I said. Why involve my mom? Tina looked at me with pity. Sometimes the person you trust most is the one holding the knife. She stood and walked to a small cabinet. From it, she pulled out a camcorder, ancient, dust-covered, but intact. She set it gently on the table. This has a recording, she said. Security footage your father took home from the factory the week he died. He gave it to me the day before, told me not to watch it unless he didn't come back. My hands trembled as I took it. Have you ever watched it? She shook her head. I couldn't. I was afraid of what I'd see. Outside, a car rolled slowly down the street, its engine too quiet. Tina's eyes flicked toward the window. You shouldn't stay here long, she whispered. If someone knows you're asking questions, they'll make sure you stop. I stood, tucking the camcorder under my arm, adrenaline thrumming through me. Do you think she really did it? I asked. Tina didn't answer. She just looked at me with eyes heavy from years of knowing but never saying. And I realized something. She'd lived with this secret for 20 years. I wouldn't.
The old camcorder felt heavier than it should. I drove home with it on the passenger seat, glancing at it more than the road. My chest was tight, like I was carrying something cursed or sacred. Once inside my apartment, I locked the door, pulled the curtains, and powered up the camcorder with trembling fingers. Miraculously, the device still worked. The tape inside clicked softly. I pressed play. Static filled the screen first, then it shifted. Grainy black and white security footage of a hallway I didn't recognize. A row of industrial doors, a flickering overhead light. The date stamp in the corner read March 22nd, 2 days before my father died. The footage continued, mostly uneventful. A man walked by, pushing a cart. Another leaned against a wall, talking into a radio. Then, at 1:13 a.m., something changed. My mother appeared on the screen. She looked different. Her hair pulled back tightly, her expression unreadable. She moved with purpose, not lost, not hesitant. She walked up to one of the doors and knocked. Seconds later, it opened from the inside. And there he was, my father. He stepped out, still in his work clothes, face tired but alert. He looked surprised to see her, not angry, just confused. The footage had no audio, but body language said enough. He asked her something. She replied with a shrug. Then she pulled out a folder from her bag. He hesitated, took it, flipped through it. Whatever was inside, it made his shoulders stiffen. He turned toward the camera for a split second, unknowingly revealing the panic building in his face. My mother said something else. She looked insistent, urgent. She pointed to something inside the room. He stepped back in. She followed him. The door closed behind them. The hallway stayed empty for the next 10 minutes. And then came the scream. Not from the tape, from me. I hadn't realized it had escaped my throat until I paused the footage and noticed my hands were shaking. Because when the door reopened, my father didn't come out. J.T. Bellamy did. Dressed in a suit, expression cold and composed. He glanced around briefly, then walked away, leaving the door ajar. My mother appeared moments later. Her face was pale. She stood at the threshold for a moment, then stepped back into the room and shut the door quietly behind her. The screen went black. The footage cut there. I sat in silence, rewinding it over and over, watching the same movements, looking for hesitation, for regret, for anything. But there was nothing accidental about it. It was a meeting. My father didn't fall. He was lured. And she helped. But why? Why go through so much effort? Why pretend for all these years? Why the lies? The grief she wore like a costume? I opened the folder Tina had given me again, hoping to find something I missed. And there it was, slipped between the last few pages, a signed legal document, a transfer of ownership. Days before my father's death, he had signed over a controlling share of the company to my mother. Not to protect it, to protect her. Or maybe he had no idea. Maybe he never even read what he signed. Maybe she handed him the very knife used to stab him in the back. My phone buzzed beside me, a text from an unknown number. You're digging too deep, kid. Some things should stay buried. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Who was watching me? And more importantly, what did they think I'd found? And what would they do to keep me quiet? I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The camcorder footage kept replaying in my head like a cursed loop. My mother entering the room, Bellamy leaving, my father never coming out. That, combined with the anonymous text, had pushed me past the point of fear into something colder, resolve. By sunrise, I was back on the road. Destination, the company headquarters. The place had downsized since my dad's time, just a small corner of a commercial building now, tucked between a car rental office and a coffee shop. But I wasn't there to confront anyone. I was there to break in. Using an old key card my father had kept hidden in a toolbox, something I found tucked inside the camcorder case, I managed to access a forgotten side entrance. Dust coated every surface. The server room was still there, humming faintly. In a locked cabinet, I found the drive. It took hours to decrypt, but when the files finally opened, I understood why someone had wanted this gone. There were recordings, meetings, voice memos, internal calls. One stood out, my father's voice, sharp but nervous. If I disappear, if something happens to me, this is for my son. He needs to know the truth, not the version they'll feed him, not what his mother tells him. He needs to know who she really is. He named names, showed spreadsheets, wire transfers, shell companies. And then, something I didn't expect. I forgave her a long time ago. She didn't have a choice, not really. Bellamy made sure of that. I froze. What did that mean? The last folder contained scanned documents, letters exchanged between my father and my mother before their marriage. It painted a picture I'd never seen before. My mom, a bright young analyst, had once worked directly under Bellamy. She'd gotten too close to something she shouldn't have. My dad had met her during the fallout. He hadn't rescued her. They had covered it up together. Until it spiraled. The more I read, the more it made sense. Bellamy had always been the puppeteer. When my father planned to go public, Bellamy used the one weakness he had, my mother. He gave her two options: either deliver your husband or lose your son. A photo confirmed it. A grainy image of me at a playground 2 days before the accident. Bellamy's men in the background, pretending to be strangers. She had chosen the only thing she could protect. Me. That night, I drove to my childhood home. My mother answered the door with the same tired eyes, her expression hardening the moment she saw the folder in my hand. She didn't deny it, didn't cry. She simply walked to the kitchen, poured herself tea, and waited. I stood there, wanting to scream, wanting to throw the folder at her feet, but something in her face stopped me. Resignation, guilt, but also peace. Like she'd been carrying this weight every single day. "You know now," she said quietly, "and I know you hate me." I didn't answer. Couldn't. But if I had to choose again, I'd do the same. I looked at her then, not as the monster I'd imagined, but as a person who made a choice in a world with no good options. I left without another word. A week later, Bellamy's name hit the news. Indicted. A massive leak of documents, emails, and video evidence. Everything I'd found, dumped anonymously to journalists. I didn't claim credit. I didn't want it. Some monsters don't deserve a trial, just exposure. As for my mother, I never visited again. But I didn't turn her in either. She lives quietly now, in a town no one remembers. I get a birthday card every year. No return address, no apology. Just a note that says, "I still love you. I always did." Maybe one day I'll respond, maybe not. But I know the truth now. My father didn't fall. He was pushed. And my mother, she was already in the water, trying to keep me from drowning.
Sometimes, the people we trust the most, those who raise us, protect us, and love us, might still carry secrets we were never meant to discover. And when the truth surfaces, it doesn't just change what we know about them, it changes what we thought we knew about ourselves. This story reminds us of one painful but powerful truth. Family isn't always about blood, it's about presence, about the ones who choose to stay even when it's hard. But what happens when the ones we call family are part of the lie? Imagine waking up one day and realizing that everything, the memories, the love, the home, was built on a foundation that was never fully real. It's terrifying, but it's also freeing, because once the truth is out, even if it hurts, it gives us the power to choose, to forgive, or to walk away. Lucas spent his life in the shadows of someone else's choices. He didn't ask to be lied to. He didn't choose to be the secret. But what he did choose was to face it. And sometimes that's the bravest thing anyone can do. So here's a question for you. What would you do if the person you trusted most wasn't who you thought they were? Would you confront them? Would you keep the secret? Or would you walk away? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. This isn't just a story. It's a reminder that truth always finds its way to the surface, no matter how deep it's buried. If you felt something watching this, please consider giving it a like. Subscribe for more intense, emotional stories like this, based on real-life themes, but wrapped in mystery and suspense. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll never miss the next twist. Because here on Burned by Love, the truth is never simple, and love is rarely safe.